What happens when two privileged twins from a noble family accidentally burn down their ancestral manor with a homemade zombie? What happens when their punishment is exile to a small village together? What happens when they have nothing to do but wage war on each other using armies of the undead? Today, I'm telling you the story of two siblings who prove that the real horror on Innistrad isn't always the creatures lurking in the shadows. Sometimes it's the unhinged people wielding them. This is the story of Geralf and Gisa. Not heroes, not tragic figures, just two genuinely insane twins who took a petty sibling rivalry and weaponized it with necromancy. If you're ready for one of Magic's most darkly comedic, yet genuinely disturbing tales, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the madness of Innistrad. Don't forget, happy Halloween, and let's dive in. Before the zombies, before the armies, before the siege on their own city, Geralf and Gisa were just rich kids in Thraben with too much access to very dangerous knowledge. They came from a noble family. Their cousin, Micah Sakani, was a lunarch, head of the Abyssinian church itself. They had prestige, they had resources, they had everything except common sense. The twins were fascinated by necromancy, not for any grand philosophical reason, not even out of ambition to reshape their plane. They were interested because, well, simply put, they just were. The way other kids collect bugs or rocks, these two collected corpses and alchemical knowledge. Geralf became obsessed with the mechanics of reanimation. He wanted to understand how to stitch together corpses into functional undead. The bigger the better. The more intricate, the more impressive. He wasn't trying to create soldiers, he was trying to create art. Gisa, meanwhile, was interested in scale. If you could raise one zombie, why not 10? Why not 100? Why not an entire army? She wanted to command undead masses to feel the power of bending death itself to her will. They practiced in their family's ancestral manor, hidden in the basement where no one would notice until someone did. One day, Geralf was working on one of his creations, a composite zombie stitched together from multiple corpses, a second-rate scab, as Gisa would later call it. He was experimenting with animation methods, testing different magical combinations to see what worked best. Something went horribly wrong. The zombie lurched to life in a way Geralf hadn't anticipated. It was unstable, violent, out of control completely. According to Gisa's later account, her brother had stolen one of her corpses, an arm she had been preparing to use in his experiment. According to Geralf's account, Gisa was the one who caused the problem in the first place. What we know for certain, the zombie stumbled into the fireplace, sparks flew, the ancestral manor caught fire. Their father's response was immediate and brutal. Exile. Out of Thraben, away from the city, away from the church, away from everything. And the twins never forgave each other for it. Geralf and Gisa found themselves in Trostad, a small village near the Gavany-Kessig border surrounded by graveyards and swamps. A fitting punishment for two necromancers, perhaps, but also the worst possible place to exile two siblings who already hated each other immensely. Geralf set up a laboratory on the east side of town. He had one goal: perfection. He would create the most advanced, most impressive scabs Innistrad had ever seen, towering undead constructs that would make his father regret ever exiling him. That would prove he was worthy of his name, Geralf III, and worthy of his father's forgiveness. Gisa settled near the graveyards on the west side. She had a different goal: power. She would raise armies of ghouls. She would become so powerful that her father would have no choice but to accept her back into the family. Or better yet, she wouldn't even need his acceptance. She'd have something far more valuable: control. Almost immediately, they went to war with one another. It started over possessions. Geralf accused Gisa of stealing his sextant. Gisa accused Geralf of keeping their father's grimoire, a book bound in human skin and written in crimson symbols, containing generations of their family's necromantic knowledge. Geralf had, in fact, stolen the book, and Gisa desperately wanted it back. What began as petty accusations escalated into actual combat. They would attack each other's compounds, raise undead against each other, wage midnight raids on each other's operations. But here's where their personalities diverged in fascinating ways. Geralf, for all his madness, was a systematist. He had a rigid approach to everything: how to construct a scab, how to animate it, how to command it. So when his sister kept attacking him without warning, flanking him, using civilian casualties as soldiers, and generally ignoring all sense of fair play, he decided to impose order. He created something called the 5 Laws of Necro-warfare. The first law: no spontaneous awakenings. The second law: no luring, killing, and raising of bystanders or livestock. The third law: combatants face off at a predetermined place and time. The fourth law: combatants must have at least 3 limbs to play. And the final 5th law: headquarters are off limits. He actually asked Gisa to sign these laws in blood, to formalize their agreement. She signed them. With her blood, she swore to follow the rules of the engagement her brother had established. Then she immediately admitted she had used someone else's blood. From that point on, Geralf's carefully constructed system of fair play completely fell apart. Gisa ignored every single rule. She attacked whenever she wanted. She raised farmers and livestock as soldiers. She showed up at Geralf's lab unannounced. She sent her goals through his windows mid-dinner. Meanwhile, Geralf kept trying to convince her to respect the rules. He kept writing to her, pleading with her to understand that warfare, even zombie warfare, should have structure, discipline, honor. She kept mocking him in her responses. Her response to law number 2: if a farmer is stupid enough to check out a creepy light, then he deserves to be killed with a shovel and become my servant. Her response to law number 3: a predetermined place and time. What is this, a tea party? The fundamental difference became clear. Geralf was fighting a chess match. Gisa was fighting a war. The conflict between them reached a turning point when one of Gisa's goals, a rotting fin snake, retrieved a cursed sword called the Bloodletter. This wasn't just any weapon, it was legendary. Wounds from the Bloodletter bled forever in the living, and it could incinerate the undead with a single cut. Geralf wanted it immediately. He saw it as the ultimate tool to finally enforce his rules, to finally gain control of this chaotic war. He created a 6th law. Law number 6: the Bloodletter was forbidden. Gisa's response was to grab the sword and announce a new game: kill the scab mob. At this point, the conflict had escalated beyond 2 siblings bickering. The village of Trostad was being torn apart. Zombies were everywhere. Innocent people were dying. The town's mayor was begging for Cathars to intervene. The situation became so desperate that Geralf actually sheltered some victims in his lab, showing what might have been the first genuine moment of compassion in this entire story. He even invited them to dinner, seated at a table surrounded by scabs, which was about as uncomfortable as you would imagine. Then Gisa attacked, burst through the windows, and tried to force her brother to surrender the grimoire. A young woman named Rika Eberhardt stopped them by threatening to burn the book. She traded the grimoire for the Bloodletter, and in that moment, something shifted between the twins. For the first time, they had to work together. Not against an external enemy, but because the external situation demanded it. Together, they decided to stop fighting over scraps in a backwater village and aim for something bigger, something they could both want together. Somewhere in the wreckage of their rivalry, Geralf and Gisa decided to do something truly insane. They would unite their forces and march on Thraben. Geralf sent a letter to his sister. He told her he planned to raze their home city to the ground. He wanted to build a glorious city of undead with himself as the Lunarch, that prestigious position their cousin had held. He claimed the Thraben Cathedral for himself. But then he made an offer. Let's join together in this charitable venture. Despite your past offenses, I extend you an invitation. The cathedral is mine, but the rest of the city is yours. It was simultaneously an olive branch and a continued insult, a partnership proposal wrapped in condescension. But Gisa accepted. Together, the twins' zombie armies marched on Innistrad's holiest city. Gisa gained control of Geralf's scabs, those massive towering constructs he perfected. She commanded them to break through the outer walls. The armies poured in. The siege seemed unstoppable. Then Thalia arrived. Thalia, the powerful Catherine, leader of Thraben's defenders, realized she couldn't fight the undead hordes through conventional means, so she did something desperate. She ignited fires using the thatched roofs throughout the city, creating a ring of flame that burned indiscriminately, not just through the undead, but through everything. The entire undead army was incinerated. Gisa, faced with the loss of everything she'd built, made a choice. She abandoned the siege, but she wasn't caught in the fire. She was captured by Odric, one of Thraben's greatest champions, and imprisoned in Ryder's Lock, a fortress where they kept the most dangerous threats to the city. The siege on Thraben accomplished something remarkable. It proved that when working together, the twins were nearly unstoppable. But it also showed why they could never truly be a unified force. Gisa was imprisoned in Ryder's Lock, held by Odric and the forces of Thraben until they could figure out what to do with her. And Geralf, showing unexpected loyalty to his sister, orchestrated her escape. He engineered a plan to break her out of prison. For all their fighting, for all their insults and attacks, when it really mattered, the bond between them held. But it didn't hold for very long. When shadows over Innistrad emerged as a new threat, the twins went their separate ways. Geralf sought mentorship under Ludwig, a renowned necro-alchemist, pursuing his endless quest for perfection in undead construction. Gisa fell in with Nahiri, working toward her own agenda. They were apart. They were pursuing different goals. They were, once again, rivals rather than allies, until the Eldritch Moon rose over Innistrad. When the Eldrazi began to consume and mutate everything on the plane, something extraordinary happened. The twins came back together, because when facing an existential threat that threatened to fundamentally transform or destroy their entire home plane, the petty rivalry between two necromancers seemed suddenly insignificant. They fought side by side against forces of absolute cosmic horror, and then they went back to being at war with one another. Geralf and Gisa are a masterclass in sibling dysfunction scaled up to apocalyptic proportions. They're not tragic. They're not corrupted by external forces. They're just two genuinely unstable people who happened to be born into a family that had access to forbidden knowledge. What makes them fascinating isn't that they're evil, it's that they're consistent. Geralf is always trying to impose order. Gisa is always trying to expand her power. And neither of them can ever fully stop being siblings to each other, no matter how much damage they cause. They prove that sometimes the greatest horrors aren't monsters that come from outside. Sometimes they're the people closest to you, the ones you're connected to by blood, the ones you can't ever fully run away from. They're rivals who become allies who become rivals again, and Innistrad will never be the same because of what they've done. If this deep dive into Innistrad's most unhinged siblings resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering lore deep dives. Share this with anyone who loves dark humor mixed with genuine horror. Do you think Geralf and Gisa could ever truly work together permanently? Or are they forever doomed to this cycle of alliance and betrayal? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. We'll dive in again soon.